This is the Franchise QB Podcast, where we empower entrepreneurs to win big in franchising. We huddle up weekly to educate our audience about the most successful small business model ever created, franchising.
Welcome to the Franchise QB Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Halpern, a 20-year industry veteran and entrepreneur. My mission is for listeners to achieve their American dreams of creating wealth and independence through franchise ownership. Every week, we speak with franchisees, franchisors, or vendors that support the industry. Thank you for joining us, and let's get started. Joining us in the huddle today is Eric OConnor, VP of Franchise Development with PickleRage. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Mike, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Great to have you here. So a little background on you, Eric. You have 25 years of franchising experience with household name brands like Huntington Learning Center, Edible Arrangements, and World Gym. You also started a restaurant concept that you grew to multiple locations and worked alongside a partner to establish a 14-unit gas and convenience store chain. I have a tremendous amount of respect for people in the food and beverage space and how tough that is. So tell us a little bit about your journey into franchising and how it eventually led you to PickleRage.
Sure. No, and back in the mid '90s, I started a bagel and coffee concept in Connecticut with a great guy named Dave Greenhalgh, who's still in the QSR business up in Boston. And we started a brand. Okay. We expanded it from Connecticut to Michigan, also. I'm originally from Michigan. And we grew it to multi-units across 2 states, had a central commissary that supplied our sites in Michigan and grew it to a substantial wholesale business. Was fortunate enough to sell that business in the late 90s and got a call. I remember putting together my resume, and I remember talking to my ex-wife and saying, what should I put down? I was cream cheese spreader, bathroom cleaner, founder, and out of the blue, I got a call from a guy named Bernie, and he was with Sendit Corporation. At the time, Sendit was one of the leading franchisors in the country. They had 9 hotel chains, Century 21, Caldwell Banker, ERA. And I joined the brand with the original idea to be with Jackson Hewitt. And when I interviewed, and they said, no, we want you on the hotel side. So I started, and I worked with Super 8 was my original brand that I had, and grew it to Wingate and AmeriHost, and did that for 4 years. Went on to work for a brand called that had Hot Stuff Pizza, based out of Sioux Falls, and then that's when I got a call from a buddy of mine who was out of New York City with a private equity firm. They wanted to, as he told me, I want to have a retail business that's focused on real estate, and we want you to come help us start this brand. And what it was a private equity firm out of New York City that wanted to acquire gas stations and maybe put food in them. And this was back in early 2000s. And so my immediate response was absolutely not. And over the course of time, we worked into a partnership, and we grew to a 14-unit gas station and convenience store chain through acquisitions. And then when I sold that, had the opportunity to go back into franchising, and loved it. Started with Huntington Learning, worked with Edible Arrangements, worked for a few other brands. And then in 2016, I got a call from a family in Holland, Michigan, that wanted to start a car wash franchise. And they were a retailer, they were a car wash manufacturer, and then they wanted to start a franchise. So when they first told me about the concept, I kind of laughed, because in my convenience stores, I had car washes, didn't like them. And I thought they were a waste of money. And as I spent time with the family, they had tremendous integrity. They had tremendous experience, boutique manufacturer of car wash equipment, number 1 retailer in the country. And then they had tremendous integrity. And so I knew that I could help grow that brand. It was called Tommy's Express Car Wash. Didn't exist in 2016. Sold over 580 units. And
wow.
Now there's 240 open around the country, and they're still growing. So that, because of my success with that brand, I got calls from a lot of franchises who wanted it, their upstarts that wanted to begin to grow, and a very similar model, a recurring revenue model. And so when I got a call from the guys at PickleRage, I felt it was a very similar investment. So, exploding industry, recurring revenue model, low capital expenditures. So I felt it was a great fit for what I did. And my background, I love entrepreneurship. It's changed my life. I still own a few small companies with buddies, and I know how it changes other people's lives. So whenever I can present a solid brand with a great foundation, I like it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate the backstory. You mentioned Sendent. It's kind of a blast from the past. When I was in my early 20s and got into franchising, 24 years ago, there was a guy named Dick Egan that worked for Sendent on the Century 21 side, and he ended up leaving there to be the president of the company that I worked for that was a franchise sales organization. So my first foray into franchising was under his leadership, and he was a great guy, great leader. So tell us a little bit about, what is PickleRage? Obviously it's a pickleball concept, but for listeners that aren't familiar with the brand name itself, tell us a little bit about PickleRage.
Yeah, PickleRage is a club setting membership model indoor pickleball facility. The number one complaint of pickleball players is that there's not enough court space for them to play. And the number two complaint is once they find it, there's long waits. So if you're not familiar with what's happening in the industry, in 2020 there were 9 million pickleball players that people reported playing pickleball in the United States. In 2024, 36 million people reported playing pickleball. So the sport has increased.
That's incredible growth.
By 4 times the participation in the last 4 years, including there's professional pickleball teams now, investors like Tom Brady and LeBron James and Kevin Durant and Justin Verlander and his wife Kate Upton have all invested in professional pickleball teams. So you're seeing this explosive growth in the industry, and most people don't even realize it's growing. And so there's a big need for a formal setting for people to play in. If you think about the precursor when we were kids, Mike, we used to play basketball outdoors, right? We'd play on the old asphalt, courts over at the church, and then as we got older, we got to go inside and play on nice courts, temperate conditions. That's how the pickleball industry is now. It's in its infancy. People are learning the game outside at recreational centers. And now they're moving indoors for a more consistent experience. And what we offer is a great guest experience at PickleRage.
I didn't realize that there was this. I mean, I know there was a lot of demand, but when you talk about that kind of demand and the growth, there's just a lack of supply because there's just not enough places for people to play. So
and people get more sophisticated. So what happens with a pickleball player, they're very communal. They like to play with their friends, but as their skill levels rise, they want to be challenged. So with the PickleRage setting, we offer open play courts, challenge courts, clinics and leagues and tournaments. All the things that, as their skill levels rise, they want to be challenged. And they want to create that stickiness. Why would I join your facility if I can just play outdoors? So now this gives you the opportunity to be challenged, to play consistently with your friends, play people with the same skill level. Nothing. It's funny. I'm a average pickleball player, and nothing sucks more than going to a court and getting smoked the first time. And I'm a guy. I'm an athlete. I'm 60, but I'm still out there swinging. And I'll walk up to a court and go, I'll crush that person, and then I'll just get embarrassed. And it's so you want to make sure you match people with the right skill levels and give them the right programming. And that's what we do.
100%. Yeah, no, I came up as a tennis player, and I do like pickleball quite a bit, but I go to my tennis club twice a week, play with the same group of guys. We have a rating system, and it's the same kind of analogy there. Like if you play with people that are your ability, it's super competitive and it's a lot of fun. And if you end up playing people that are way better than you or way worse, it's just not fun.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell me, in a typical location, how many courts do you guys have in a PickleRage?
Yeah, a typical facility is going to be 25 to 35,000 square feet. You're going to have between 9 and 12 courts. What we do at PickleRage, the strength of our company, there's quite a few reasons why we're good at what we do. But the first thing we do is our parent company is called First National Realty Partners, FNRP. And they're one of the leading private equity sponsors of commercial real estate in the U.S. They're a real estate arm. And we leverage their experience to do the demographic search and the competitive market analysis in every area. And so when we look at where these facilities go, we want to make sure that the trade area has a certain level of population and a certain amount of tennis and pickleball players that are registered in that market. So when you look at 100,000 people in a trade area, you'll have 10 to 12 courts. In areas that you're more densely populated, you might go up to 16 courts. But in most cases, you're 25 to 35,000 square feet, 9 to 12 courts.
Okay, yeah, appreciate that. And it's obvious that it's a B2C model, right? It's a communal concept, like you mentioned. But do you guys actually do events for companies, or is it just B2C?
Yeah, one of the big revenue centers is event space for parties. When you look at your employees that you hire, you have two really key employees. One's a general manager, one's a program director. Your general manager, really, their background is retail or hospitality. It's because pickleball is now taking over for golf when it comes to corporate parties and the place where people do business. They get together now. The pickleball court is, according to the surveys that we see. And so we have, all of our facilities have event space where people will have meeting spots. In West Bloomfield, it was funny, like our first, West Bloomfield, Michigan is one of our first locations open. And very early, we were getting calls from companies that wanted to reserve the whole facility and do corporate events, parties. Yep. And so it's a big part of what we do. And having that hospitality GM or that retail GM who understands that's a revenue center is a big part of what we do when it comes to those facilities and baking those in. Because if you ever go to a facility, you'll see there's a lot of, in between matches, people are talking and they like to hang out. And that's why having that space is critical. So we build in event space for every location.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting you mentioned that. One of the things I do with my time now when I travel is go to meet with franchisors and really get to know their leadership team and look at their training facilities and really get to know the brands better so I can in turn come back and kind of educate my clients about what I like about them. And the last two events I went to, one was at a pickleball facility. That's kind of where we socialized and got to spend time with the leadership team and the development team. And the other one was at a Topgolf doing golf. So I can see how those things are becoming a lot more popular for kind of team building and things like that. So it was a lot of fun for us because we got to, get to know these people and actually have fun at the same time. So tell me a little bit about like the stickiness of the brand for your B2C consumers. Like you talked about that community. Are people coming once a week? Are they coming every other week? Like what's the frequency with which the, end user kind of comes around to the facility?
Yeah, typical pickleball player plays a minimum of twice a week. And so when we bake in the model, we have, it's membership driven. And what you want to do is have about 100 members per court. And so we look at court utilization and we factor in, typical player plays twice a week. We'll find that every area of the country has a little different persona. And so in West Bloomfield, Michigan, we have members that bring friends. And then in Jacksonville, Florida, just intense pickleball players. In Jacksonville, the members may play more often. And it really comes down to the maturity of pickleball in your market. To be honest with you, Mike, I'm fascinated by the whole conversation because when you look at the nuance of every location, when you do your demographic search, when you look at what's happening in the market, that's what determines how well these facilities do. And so, but on average, they play twice a week. But I go up to our different locations for tours and discovery days, and every Friday we have people in our facilities, and there's probably half of them are in every Friday. But when I talked to it was a great anecdotal story. I had some franchise prospects in West Bloomfield, and they said, "Do you mind if we talk to a couple members?" And I said, "No, I don't mind. I know these two." And I introduced them to one of them, and then his buddy just started talking, and just a random question: "How much money did you spend in here?" And he said, "Well, I've got a membership. My wife has a membership. My wife is part of a league. I take 2 lessons a week. I spend about $600 a month." And we all just kind of looked at him like, "Wow, that's a lot of money." But that's what you're seeing in the industry. As people join the sport, they want to get better. And once they get to a 3, they want to get to a 3.5 level. Once they get to a 3.5, they want to get to a 4. And it's really funny is that this sport is, because it's in its infancy, you see more frequency of play. And that's why the club setting great technology is critical, because then you have to manage the expectation of the member because they're used to playing outside. and waiting for a very long time in between matches. Now we want to get in there and really get them to play more frequently, but at a shorter time span. So it's a very interesting model, and how you program it, the technology you use, really creates that great experience for them. Because in other types of outdoor facilities, you just go and wait around for the next game. It could be 3, 4, 5 games later. And what we try to do when we do open play is just have 8 people assigned per court, and that's why it spins faster and they get more play, better experience.
Yeah, that's cool. And like you mentioned, the $600 a month, and I'm sure like the way that he justifies that is not only is it himself, but it's like his family getting to participate, and it's exercise. So you kind of say, all right, well, it's almost like investing in my health, and so, and then there's the social aspect of it. So like you can justify that. And yeah, it sounds like a kind of a, luxury car payment, but at the end of the day, you're getting so much value back out of it for yourself and your family.
Yeah, cool. and of course it's anecdotal, and it's not normal. I mean, he's somebody who spends more. But what's interesting is I had another prospect in a couple months ago, and he's a toy manufacturer, and he manages pennies millions of times. So he's got a high volume toy manufacturer, and he's a pretty intense guy. And I remember him looking at me after he settled down and going, "Everyone's smiling here. Everyone's having a good time." And I went, "Yeah, that's recreational sports, man. That's the business model." And so I think when it becomes your country club, when it becomes your place to go, you don't mind spending money to be there, and then you enjoy it. It's like going to your favorite restaurant. You just don't mind spending the money because you know the waiter, the people around you. It's a great experience.
Yeah, that's a good point. That like as an owner, you get a lot of gratification out of it because the people that are showing up there, it's not like they're getting their teeth pulled. They're going there to have a great time with their friends, and it's like the best part of their week. So that's pretty cool. So was the West Bloomfield store the flagship? And also kind of second part of that question is, when did you guys kind of convert it from an independent business model to a franchise system?
Well, it's always been their model. They built corporate sites first. So the goal was they decided to get in the industry. They contacted me back about a year ago. I was working with another brand, World Gym, wrapping up some responsibilities there. And I came to the brand in July. And that's when they were opening up their first corporate location. So it was their goal to get proof of concept first. And they had a few corporate sites under development when I joined the brand. And then it really was to get serious about selling franchises once we had proof of concept to show people. So they opened up their first location July of 2024. And it's been great. And it was funny because I would say that's the flagship, but we have sites in Glen Burnie, Maryland, and in Jacksonville, Florida, and they each have their own special nuance of why they are the flagship. And it's really interesting. Like I said, every model's a little different, but I think that the brand itself when you go to different locations, you really see the true nature of the population of pickleball players. Very passionate people. And in Michigan, it's great because you see the seasonality of, intense winters, people are out. Yeah. But then you would think that the business is seasonal. It's not, because in Jacksonville, you can play year-round outdoors. They're indoors playing because it's a better experience. So, I think that the corporate site in West Bloomfield was the original intention, but I think it's slowly moving down to Jacksonville because it shows people a little less seasonality of the business, and people wrap their head around it a little bit better.
That's cool. So what are the revenue streams in the model? I know there's a membership model, so people, just like that anecdote you gave me before. What about drop-ins? Like, I'm sure that's an option as well. Is there like a 50-50 split, or is there some other kind of general breakdown of revenue for an owner?
Yes, as you grow your facility and your facility matures, you want to move to about 100 members per court. And how I explain to people is, when you get around 80 members per court, you got to kind of monitor play because you have to build value into the membership. And there's also value in having non-members play at your facility. So at PickleRage, we offer 2 tiers of membership. There's more. There's more, but I always talk about the unlimited package or the elite, and then the a la carte where you get discounts on court fees. So we have a top package where a member will pay 1 fee, open play, court reservations, all included in that 1 fee. It ranges on the part of the country you're in from, say, $90 to $159 a month. And then there's the a la carte membership where they will get a discount on court fees and open play, and leagues, tournaments, and clinics. So the top line revenue membership and then court fees for members and non-members if you have the a la carte membership, and that usually accounts for about 65% of your revenue. Then it's leagues and tournaments, and then camps, clinics, and training, and it's personal and small group. So one of the things we're very successful at, and we recognize at our locations is if you just have pickleball training, it's not as popular. But if you do break it into like serving, technique, footwork, and people can kind of graduate up to step by step and learn the game better, there's more stickiness to the membership. So when you have small group and specialized clinics, it's more, there's more substance to those. And then we have event space for parties, and then we have a pro shop, and then we have a small food and beverage offering, grab-and-go drinks and snacks.
Okay. So the food and beverage isn't a full kitchen that you have to staff and operate and cook hot food. It's more
we're keeping it simple.
Stuff that can be.
You got to keep it simple because when you, how I explain it to people is finding 30,000 square feet is tough enough. If you're going to segment one court, essentially, if you had a restaurant in your facility, you're essentially taking one court out.
Yeah.
And I just tell people this, say you have 10 courts, Mike, and if you were to have lunch, that means you have 40 people playing in your facility at any given time, and they play for lunchtime, 2 hours. And let's say half of them ate lunch. How much money can you make serving lunch to 20 people in a day? And
I totally get it. I mean, I look at it just like our tennis club. We have 12 courts, and there's no food offering, and there's no need for it, honestly. I mean, nobody goes there.
So we keep it simple,
there, they want to shower
labor.
up and go afterwards. Like we play on Tuesday nights, and we play from 6 to 7:30. Then we go out to the pub next door, and we get dinner, and that's where we kind of talk about our game.
You could do my pitch, Mike. That's what I tell people.
So tell us a little bit about the labor model. You mentioned that the two key roles, aside from the owner, are going to be the GM and the program manager. Who else is in the shop as a W-2 for the franchise owner?
Yeah, you're going to have a series of part-time front desk associates. One of those are going to be probably like a shift leader or an assistant general manager. But really the two key roles are your general manager, which is hospitality, retail driven, and your program director, who's more skill set. So their role, they kind of manage the pickleball pros. Pickleball pros are 1099 contractors. They come in, they do the clinics, the camps, the training. And so the role kind of split is they manage the program director manages the pickleball pros. The GM kind of manages the front desk associates and the guest experience. That's how I kind of break it up for people to kind of simplify it. And you're going to have two people on staff the whole time. Just because you want to make sure, because it's a safety issue, you always want to have somebody at the front desk to greet people, and then somebody to kind of orchestrate, the club setting. And what I mean by that is, when your facility's full, you want to make sure people are playing and they're on the right courts. Because if you've ever been, you kind of come in, you put your rackets in the holder, and you're next up, and you might have 4 or 5 rackets in this one and 0 over here. You want to direct people over, manage the courts. And so you want to just make sure that the guests are having a great experience and you're communicating with them. And the other person's kind of managing the front desk. Now that could be a general manager, doing the walking around the facility, and not always some people for safety issues, but it's low labor. So you have one or two staff members there at all time.
Yeah. So to your point about it being low labor, that just puts more emphasis on the importance of getting a great piece of real estate, making sure that the franchise owner is properly capitalized, and you just have a really buttoned up process for site selection. Can you speak to that a little bit? I mean, it sounds like you guys are owned by real estate experts, but how do you help the franchise owner find that great site?
Yeah. So on our calls, our process is we do an initial call with people, and then we invite them to a webinar. Once on that initial call, we find out where they would like to locate. And so I have a dedicated real estate team, and the role of the real estate team really is to help us, identify the right markets to be in. And what we look for is underserved markets. So we look at that trade area. We look at that 15-minute drive time. So FNRP, First National Realty Partner, is the parent company. We have a dedicated team on my, guys with the real estate experience on my team. Chris Dice is the vice president of real estate construction. And what we do is, first thing we do is we do a competitive market analysis. We look at the population, the demographics, active senior population, demographic income, middle income and above, white collar workers, business professionals, and that's the persona of your pickleball player for the most part. Right. And then we look at who's in the market, what real estate's available, and then we try to find. So we have a war map with every location, ours, competitors, outdoor facilities, planned, pending. When it comes to leases, and we put this war map together. And then when you come to me and say I want to be in Tupelo, Mississippi, we tell you if it's a good market or not, and then we will tell you where you should be in that market, because there's convenience, there's accessibility, and then when you factor all those in, and then it comes down to 20-foot ceiling height and 30-foot column width, and so there's quite a few factors that are going to determine whether or not there's available real estate in your market.
Yeah,
and so
go ahead.
And so that's how we start. As part of it. So you come to our webinar, and then our next call, we talk about your market. Is it a viable market? If it's not a viable market, we'll tell you. We don't want to sell you a franchise unless it makes sense. And so, Mike, you've been in the industry a long time. Selling franchises is relatively easy. Opening franchises is tougher, and building a brand's very tough. And that's why our approach is to make sure that we're giving them all the information up front. This is a great market. It's underserved. About building real estate. And here's how we service our community. That's an important part of what we do, of our expertise, because the pickleball industry is Wild West right now. A lot of industry people jumping into it. And without that professional real estate background, it can be tough for people who are out there just kind of using third parties to help them grow their brand, because I think that's what really differentiates us from our competitors is the amount of detail our team requires of ourselves to make sure our franchise community has the right opportunities in the market.
Yeah, no, I mean, it goes back to the fundamentals back when I was in my restaurant days. You get a great site, a great brand, great operator, look out, good things are going to happen. Yeah. You miss one or two of those components, you're in trouble. So you mentioned all right, let's say the guy comes to you for Tupelo, but it turns out that's not a great site, but in Jackson, there's a great site. So can the owner be somewhat distant if they have a good GM that's going to be in there day-to-day running the business?
Yeah, I think that's, what I tell people all the time. This is a business set up for entrepreneurs and professionals, business professionals. It's a simple business model if you are able to manage a team. And so, we're an entrepreneurial operating system company, EOS company, and it really starts with a couple basic fundamentals. Right people in the right places and know your numbers. And so, as part of our training, we train you how important it is to hire the right general manager, and then how to keep them accountable, because accountability is one of the things that we train you on how to manage your team, which seems it seems interesting part of a franchise, but I mean I'll be honest with you, I'm 60 years old, and it's the first EOS based company I've worked with, and it has changed my work habits, and I'm pretty structured to begin with. So we have 3 corporate sites in Michigan, Glen Burnie, Maryland, and Florida. We have great general managers, and our COO is David Smith, and he's very structured how he oversees these facilities. And that's what we give to our franchise community, is that ability to manage your team remotely. Of course, we want active. You can be passively active and manage your team, or you can be in your facility all the time. But this brand is set up for entrepreneurs that want to manage a team of great professionals. And what I tell people at the end of the day, it's a sales and marketing company. Mm-hmm. And so, you got to make sure your fundamental staff is in place. Then it really is, you're selling memberships, it's marketing, getting out in the community, shaking hands and kissing babies in every community and being part of a local business. And owners who understand that, the innovation, the marketing side of the business, are more successful, in our model.
Yeah, I mean, my next question was going to be, who's your ideal candidate? But you just kind of talked about that. So they're capitalized, they're entrepreneurial, they're the mayor of the town, they have a social presence in the community, so they can drive sales and memberships and keep the right people in the right seats. Anything else?
I always tell people, I do a very last slide of my presentation when I do the webinar is I talk about who we're looking for. And we're looking for people that understand the importance of sales, innovation, and marketing, because business models change always. And there's always new technology. But, build it and they'll come. the demand's there, of course, but you have to be active in your community, and you have to be out there and shaking hands and kissing babies and knowing your guest's name. And if it's not you, it's got to be your general manager. And that's what I believe that we do very well at our corporate locations. I am blown away at the passion our members have for our staff. And as you say, I'm a big guy, white beard, white eyes. I walk around with this on. I'm in the facilities. People know that I'm part of the executive team, and I get compliments the whole time when I'm in our corporate facilities about how well the staff takes care of our guests. And I think that's an important part for people to realize. You're in the retail business. The guest experience is critical. It's why Chick-fil-A, it's why Apple is more successful than their competitors, because they understand the importance of a guest experience. And that's what we do at PickleRage. We really make sure that we take care of our guests when they're in the facility, and we understand what makes them tick and why they come to our facilities.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So let's talk a little bit about item 7. If someone's looking at this and they want to be a PickleRage owner, I know you're going to have a massive gap because of the footprint. I mean, you're talking about an enormous amount of space. So what's that item 7 look like in terms of the investment?
Yeah, the range of investment for a 20 to 50,000 square foot location is between $787,000 and $1.7 million. What we do is we include all possible costs. We include initial franchise fee, 3 months rent, 3 months operating capital, and then the grand opening marketing expenditures of $20,000 to $50,000. If I go backwards, and this is why I always explain to people, it's a pretty simple construction process. Think of a 30,000 square foot box, and so when you look at the initial franchise fee, 3 months rent, 3 months operating capital, and grand opening expenditures, that's about $220,000, $240,000. When you look at, say, 10 courts, that's another $100,000. When you look at FF&E, millwork, cabinets, fencing, environmental banners, which is signage, that's about another $120,000. So that's about $460,000. Everything else in that formula is leasehold improvements. And that's why when we help you negotiate the terms of your lease and get the tenant improvement allowance money that helps bring your costs down, it's important. And that's why there's a big range in the item 7, because the big fluctuating number there is leasehold improvements. So if you get great, because most of our locations are second generation, old Bed Bath & Beyond, old Toys R Us. You have to kind of tear them apart to put them back together. Landlords contribute that tenant improvement allowance to that number, and that helps bring your costs down. Big factor in the range of investment. And
I know
a big portion is just leasehold improvements.
Yeah, and I know the time frame to get open is going to also vary because, like you said, sometimes you have to gut the place and then you have to start over. And I'm sure you could find a gray box where you're the first tenant. What's the guidance we're giving owners for time frame from when they sign their franchise agreement to when they get their first facility operation?
12 to 15 months.
Okay.
We have a franchise partner in Mobile that is going to be open about 7. Depending on how much work we do prior to you signing your franchise agreements on location, it could be 9 months. When you go backwards from opening to beginning of construction, it's 90 days. It's a pretty simple process. Once it's a vanilla box finish, it's 90 days finish. So it's everything prior: site identification, lease negotiation, permitting, and then the demolition. But the actual process itself to build out a facility, less than 90 days.
And in terms of territories that in item 12 that we give to the owners, I guess that just depends on density and how far of a radius people are willing to commute to get the facility. How big is a territory once someone's kind of operational?
Yeah, we always start with a search area for every franchise partner to kind of look for their area. And because it's early in the process, we give them a larger search area to look for the location. Once they find the location, it comes down to population density. We're that 100 to 150,000 people per trade area, which is usually a 15 to 20 minute drive time. Every market is different. If you're in Dallas, population is dense. If you're in some Midwest counties, it's a little bigger. But it really depends on a lot of factors, Mike, whether it's rivers, and like right now I'm doing a territory in Florence, Kentucky, and I can't do a population radius because it would eat up Cincinnati. We know that the river cuts it in half.
Right,
so you kind of have to look at every location is a little different. But what we do, like what we're very sensitive to, is putting our locations close enough for synergy, far enough apart that don't cannibalize each other, and making sure that we don't leave open opportunities for our competitors. And so we really spent a lot of time with the owner talking about his area, what his long-term goals are, and how to kind of build the model out and where the location should be using the demographic. Just because you're a big populated city doesn't mean every area is a pickleball opportunity. If you're in Detroit, you've got an opportunity for maybe 5 or 6 locations throughout from Ann Arbor to St. Clair Shores. But you have a population of well over 1 million people. So every area is a little different, but we just sit down and spread out a map, work it out with the owners, franchise partners. That's the beauty of being part of an emerging brand too. You have a lot of say early on territories.
Yep. So, Eric, what advice can you give to aspiring entrepreneurs that are kind of like, wow, this pickleball thing seems pretty interesting. I might want to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I go back to my days at Huntington, and I remember we would do lunch with Ray Huntington and wrap up with Eileen Huntington. And both would ask the same question: what does it take to be successful? And with Eileen, it was great because she would say, follow our system. We've been doing this for 35 years. Now it's been over 50 years they've been doing Huntington. And I think that when you join a franchise system, buy in. If the biggest ironic dynamic for most high net worth investors is they're very entrepreneurial. And the ability to not want to do it on your own is that thing that kind of pushes, it's push-pull with everybody. Why can't I do this on my own? It's because you have a team of people behind you who are all experts. My background, 20 plus years of franchising, business development, Mike Law, the senior vice president of marketing, David Smith, our COO, who's been in franchising for 25 years. Follow our system. We have nothing but your best interest in place. And when it comes to, and then kind of like listen to professionals and put your personal ego aside when it comes to where you want to locate your business. Because a lot of times people want to build a Taj Mahal in their backyard, and they don't realize that convenience and accessibility are one of the greatest factors of success for any business. And if you're not patient, and you don't want to follow the system, this may not be the model for you. And that could be any franchise. And so for me, it's patience, follow the system, and be properly capitalized. Yeah. And then just dig in and put both feet in your business, because when you're active in your business, you're more successful. And when you're passionate about it, you get up every morning being excited about what you do. And I always tell people, if you just do this for an investment, you just invest in the stock market. It's very passive. You don't have to look at it. But if you're going to be in the retail business, be involved.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And I think it's a conversation that both you and I have with a lot of candidates that are trying to figure out if independent business ownership is the right path for them versus franchise ownership. And it's like, if you're trying to create everything on your own, be independent, go out there and try it, make the mistakes. But if you want it all, figure it out, follow the system, the franchisor is giving you this blueprint, and, invest in what you see. Yes, it's going to evolve, but don't try to change it, or it really doesn't make sense to be a franchise owner. It makes more sense to go try something on your own. So,
Mike, 'cause I've done this from both sides where I've started my own companies from scratch. I remember putting up the menu boards as we were creating recipes on the first day I opened my first bagel shop in 1992 or whatever year it was. And trying to figure out how to make cream cheese. Like we said, oh, it's vegetable. You put tomatoes, cucumber, and we started stirring it. It was just a big mess of slush. And we went, it's got to be drier. And I just remember laughing about it. And I remember as we got to our third location, my partner goes, I think we got this. It was our third location. And he's like, yeah, I think I got this. I'm like, yeah, I think we're pretty good at this. And
that's funny.
And I think that's what people don't account of the cost of time, right?
100%. Yeah, and there's a cost. There's also a financial cost to making those mistakes. So, well, this has been great, Eric. I really appreciate all your insights. And anything else you want to add to the mix today before we wrap up?
No, I think that, if anybody's interested in the pickleball industry, we have a great due diligence process, very structured. We give you a lot of information in the right context. Go to PickleRage.com for more information. You can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. But, Mike, I really appreciate you having me on today and love to talk about the industry.
Absolutely. And I'll post your website on this episode. And if anyone listening would like to connect with Eric to learn more about becoming a PickleRage franchise owner, contact me at franchiseqb.com or on X at QB Franchise QB. I'll get you connected with Eric. Eric, thank you so much for taking the time to get in the huddle and discuss PickleRage with us today.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Have a great day.
You got it. Thank you for listening to the Franchise QB podcast, where you're at the helm of your future as a franchise owner. If you enjoyed the content, please rate the show and recommend it to anyone that might be interested in franchising. Make sure to visit franchiseqb.com to subscribe to my newsletter and for an actionable playbook to go from walk-on to legend in your new business. Follow us on Twitter at QBFranchiseQB and join us every week for a new episode. See you next time.
Visit franchiseqb.com to take the next step of your journey towards wealth, independence, and franchise ownership. And remember, when working for the man gets old, you must do something bold. Thank you for listening.